In episode number 343 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we have a full-on review for the true Captain Marvel movie titled Shazam in movie theaters right now. I am Darth Vader Daniel.
I am Emperor Palpa Kelli.
And today, because we do like to have some guests on for the reviews, like to get an extra opinion or two when we have, especially these comic book movies. And in this case, you may have seen tons of retweets and favorites on our end. You've seen them on your timeline by now. And today we have Manu from the film Exiles and also the Exiles Network, another podcast, another film podcast, one of many. It is, again, a full network of shows. Manu, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for coming to join us. We're happy to have you.
I would hope so. You guys are great. I listen to you guys every week. Your pod is one of my favorites to listen to.
Thank you so much for the kind words. And I, of course, love listening to the film Exiles. And more recently, I don't know how you have time to guest on the show, but I'm very happy that you are. But for the Master Scoopers, that is the film Exiles now. How are you not just blowing up in notifications left and right?
It's been a crazy couple of days, but it's been a lot of fun. And honestly, the best part of it is just being able to share the news with the fandom and to see all the love and attention that Mr. Ray Porter has gotten from the news coming out. And that was really heartwarming to see yesterday. And even from his tweets, you could tell that he was very surprised and grateful for it.
And for any brokettes that might have missed on what exactly the news was, what happened with this Snyder Cut movement that got this giant boost, what did you break to the world?
We luckily, it was really just an accident. We got some information that an actor was cast as Darkseid in Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League.
Incredible. Like, we knew that there were some hints of, there were early screenings where Darkseid was shown, and we're not really sure at what extent he was going to be in this movie. And now, thanks to this casting news from the Exiles Network, we know that not only was he definitely in the movie, but there was at least some kind of dialogue, something more of substance to the character than just a brief appearance. So that is huge, a huge boost for the Snyder Cut movement. And obviously an amazing thing for the Exiles Network to get and to share with everyone. I've seen a lot of news sources as well go ahead and confirm it. And on Twitter, as you mentioned, he himself has been not necessarily saying that he is Darkseid, but if you look on his timeline, he's been liking a lot of Darkseid things, which is great.
Yeah, that darn NDA is keeping him from confirming. I think he said that in one of his tweets. But it's like I said, it's been just really a lot of fun to see everybody kind of like just jump on and talk about this and share it. It's been really heartwarming to see it, and we're all about the Snyder Cut movement. Because us, I don't know if you guys know, but if it wasn't for BVS, there would be no Exiles Network. We all met on Twitter during the months after BVS was released, and there was the can I cuss here? I can curse here, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Okay,
Fuck
cool.
yeah.
And there was this ridiculous shitstorm around the movie and the actors and the director and Mike, Millennial Mike. He gathered those of us that were out there fighting the good fight, and he put us in his group chat together, and we've been together ever since. And so we really came together because of Snyder's art, and we think that it's really important because his films have touched a lot of us in different ways, and we really want that cut to come out because we think that can continue.
And I think something that's really important with the Exiles movement and the Exiles Network is that you are all promoting the art form that is film. And I think there was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that fire was really in that belly, the point where we saw what happened with Justice League, where we saw this artist who did not have his work truly reflected on screen and honestly butchered, where it should upset a lot of people to the point of, no, we need to have this gathering of voices that say, let's not only support the artists like Zach, but also review movies that are legitimately good. Not just something that you will watch once, forget about, and never see again, but something that you can think about and actually discuss with other people for months and years to come.
Yeah, when we first started out, we talked a lot about what we were going to do and how we were going to approach things. We talked a lot about if we were just going to become like a DC fan site, but there were so many already out there, and there are so many other films that weren't getting talked about and that weren't getting the attention that we feel they deserve. So we thought that it would be good to kind of take this like you call it the fire in the belly that was lit by Snyder and kind of touch a lot of different films with that same passion, and it's been really really interesting and fun to do. We talk to each other all the time, and we talk about films that we've seen and we share them, and a lot of the pods that we do, it's usually because somebody saw a movie and really liked it and then shared it with the others and we talked about it, and just that energy and that atmosphere, we just wanted to share that with people who wanted to find something very similar.
And there you have it, Brocats. That is the caliber of quality guests that we have today on the show.
Only the best.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much.
So with that, let's jump into today's review, which is the latest in the DC Extended Universe. As we said earlier, it is Shazam. What credits do we have here, Palpa Kelly?
Shazam was directed by David Sandberg, who also did Annabelle Creation. Never saw it. Sounds spooky.
Did you see it, Manu?
Annabelle Creations?
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest, I am not a horror fan. I am a big scaredy cat.
Me too.
I am
even like the name, I'm scared now. We got to stop. You made me read the scary movie.
I saw James Wan's the first film the first horror movie that he made, not the first. Yes, The Conjuring, and I still have nightmares because
I still have nightmares about that little girl who was hiding underneath the floorboards. Remember you made me see that movie?
She's talking about
Cabin in the Woods or something. Kind of like Cabin in the Woods.
Wait, was it Cabin in the Woods? Joss Whedon with
no,
I think that was
it wasn't that one.
Evil Dead.
Evil Dead. There you go.
Evil Dead. Because if I remember, Cabin in the Woods was more of a comedy than a horror, right?
Well, if it's Joe Whedon, I'm sure it was.
Shots fired.
I still see her scary little face, though. I can't. I'm done.
Yeah, so I tend to avoid horror movies, but yeah, I saw Us very recently that I liked a lot. I'm willing to give them more of a chance. I've been told to watch Hereditary. I haven't built up the courage yet, but I'll get around to it.
Yeah, I haven't seen Annabelle Creation either, but I have to go and look at his full credits, but I didn't see anything that I recognize. This might be my first Sandberg film, which is Shazam. As written,
also had Lights Out that came out a few years ago, I think.
Yeah, I didn't see that one either.
It sounds familiar, but no, definitely didn't see it.
I think him and his wife started out doing like YouTube videos, and that's how they were discovered.
Huh. That's awesome.
That's the new thing now.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. I actually think Josh Trank also did like that lightsaber fight that he put up on YouTube many years ago, and years later, he finally got like a pretty big superhero movie, which ended up being Fantastic Four, and something similar happened to him where they changed the ending and he kind of disappeared from the internet for a while. So that seems to be where a lot of people discover talent now.
I'm really happy to hear that Trank is coming back. He has a film coming out this year with Tom Hardy that he wrote, directed, and edited, and he seems very proud of it. So I'm really glad that he was able to find a way back from that horrible experience on Fantastic Four.
Yeah, it's very tough to bounce back. A lot of studios won't want to touch you again.
Yeah, especially since he lost. He was meant to do one of the Star Wars movies that he lost after all of that mess took place.
That sucks.
Yeah, he was supposed to do one of the spin-offs, I think. And
maybe it's better for him. Might have worked out in his favor.
Yeah, I think he was meant to do one of the spin-offs. I actually don't remember, but he was meant to do a Star Wars movie, but they took it away from him after the Fantastic Four debacle.
As far as the writing on Shazam, we have Henry Gayden, who did Zombie Roadkill, and also Darren Lemke, who did Goosebumps, which Kelly and I really liked.
That was a great movie. I was not expecting it to be what it was.
Jack Black, right?
Yes.
Yes.
A lot of adult humor.
Yeah, a lot. And then this movie stars Zachary Levi from Chuck. I watched all of Chuck, by the way.
I love Chuck.
Chuck was a really fun show. Digimon,
Yes,
is that?
I think it's Gmon. I could be wrong. I don't know how to really pronounce it. Do you know, Manu?
It's Gmon.
Gmon.
Gmon. I like Digimon better. Okay, Gmon Hansu from Blood Diamond, Mark Strong from Kingsman: The Golden Circle, and Jack Dillon Grazer from It.
I really like that kid.
Mark Strong, also Sinestro himself from the
Yes.
Green Lantern movie. One of the best parts of that.
The only good part of that movie.
He was also in the first Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr.
That's right. He wasn't a villain, though, was he?
Yeah, he was. He was.
Oh,
a
he
villain
was?
in that.
Okay.
I think he's just
Yeah,
always
he was-
a villain.
And he was fantastic in that. He was fantastic in that one.
I might be thinking of Kingsman, where he wasn't a villain in that.
No, he was not a villain in Kingsman. No,
Okay.
he was the Q, the quote unquote Q of for the Kingsman.
We are going to go into his talents later on. I'm already cheating here. I loved Mark Strong in this. But Shazam so far, let's talk about the performance on this. How much has Shazam taken in so far, Manu?
I think what was it, 160 mil this weekend over the first 3 days?
Yeah, we're pretty much there now.
Mhm.
160 million. And that's according to boxoffice.com. Warner Brothers Pictures chairman Toby Emmerich actually spoke about the film's $98 million budget.
We have a quote here, quote, "As amazing as the Marvel movies are, audiences have come to expect a scale and a scope and a spectacle. It works, but there's an opportunity in that circumstance to make a superhero movie that is smaller. Shazam relies on a certain kind of charm that makes it different by the nature in its size and tone."
End quote. And so far, that is a great sign for the future of at least the Shazam franchise, however we may end up feeling about the film.
I still feel like 98 million is a lot of money, though.
As far as the budget,
Yeah.
it really is.
That's like, we shouldn't spend that much, only 98 million.
I think like as far as comic book movies, 98 million is low, right?
That's insane. I mean, they
'Cause
make a
I
lot of
think-
money, but that's
I think-
crazy.
I think Tomb Raider that came out last year
Hmm.
was around the same budget. I think it was actually a little higher.
For that one, it showed like that they had good special effects and some strong sets. I actually really like Tomb Raider
We do too.
When
Yeah,
did
we
you
do
see
too.
Tomb Raider?
when I was in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
You go to the movies without me?
I mean, whatever, but
And so far, the writer, Henry Gayden, has signed back on to write a sequel for New Line and Warner Brothers. David Sandberg and producer Peter Safran are expected to return as well. Obviously, with the initial success of Shazam, now we have Dwayne Johnson coming out and more or less confirming further his future in the DCEU.
yep, Dwayne did recently state that the solo Black Adam film is set to begin filming next year. My movie's coming too, guys. I'm going to be great also.
What do you think, Manu? Doesn't it feel like he waited to see, or at least they told him to wait and see first to make sure it wasn't a total flop?
I have no idea what's going on with The Rock in this role. It seems like he's had this role for like a decade now. Am I right or wrong?
No, I mean, it definitely feels that way.
It feels that way, but I'm glad that it's happening. I really love Dwayne Johnson. I used to be a big fan of The Rock when he was still wrestling, and to this day, I feel like he always has something interesting to bring to his films. Even if the film isn't great, he's always great in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really interested to see what he does with Black Adam and what kind of energy he brings to the role.
Yeah, no matter what they cast the man in, as you said, he's going to. If anything, you're going to go, well, I like The Rock. Like, he was charming as hell.
I hope he sings again, like in Moana, so I can just have some more of Dwayne Johnson singing.
Dwayne Johnson is great. There's this movie. I forgot the name of it. When I think it's with Madison Pettit. When he finds out that he's had this daughter all along, he's like this football player.
Yes, I think I've
Yes.
seen that movie.
Oh yeah, and I think he sings Elvis a couple of times during the course of that
I
movie.
think I remember that. It's on Netflix, isn't it? Is that where I saw it?
It might have been at some point.
Yeah, I remember that movie.
It's a good movie. It's
A lot of heart.
As far as the review itself, the way we break it down for anyone that's new to our regular reviews, we go through 3 categories. We do story first and kind of rate the story and talk about the things that worked and did not. We go into the acting, the performances for the film, and then we combine directing and special effects into one, especially with superhero movies. That's really prevalent, and a lot of it goes hand in hand with the big action scenes and everything. So those are the 3 categories. And then at the end, we set a rating out of 5. And we usually theme it to the movie. I'm thinking out of 5 titty bars.
I was going to say cosmic eyeballs, but I guess titty bars works too.
You can do eyeballs. I'll do titty bars.
I like titty bars. I vote for titty bars.
All right, cool. Start off with the story, the opening of the movie, where you do see it sometimes, but in this case, it was a little bit unexpected. It is the sort of origin of Sivana, where this is the setup of the character, and until later on, maybe 10 to 15 minutes in, they reveal that this is the character that we've been following. I think if you've seen enough movies, you kind of see the structure, like, okay, so obviously this is going to be the villain or someone that he's going to go up against. It's not Billy Batson. And they really tried hard to set him up as this is the most sympathy that we get out of the character. And I think as far as Sivana himself, that was a fault in my eyes, because this is the only bit that I thought, I'm like, okay, now I understand the character. And then from there it was just kind of like bad guy trying to go back to his childhood and make himself relevant and show his dad. And I feel like the beginning wasn't enough for me for it to go throughout the entire movie.
To really care about the villain. I could jump on board with that. For me as a mom, I'm watching this whole time like, where's his mom? His dad's a piece of shit. Like, no wonder he's fucked up for life. Like, parenting.
I mean, yeah, his dad was bad enough, and then Shazam did not help either. I mean, I don't know how you can tell a little kid that he's not good enough, like at that age, and expect him to be okay.
And I love that he did it hundreds of times. Like when he's going through.
So like, you're a piece of shit, and you're a piece of shit.
You're all pieces of shit.
And it's not till the end where he settles for Billy. Even then, he's not like, "Oh no, you're pure of heart." He's like, "You're it.
You're it. You're what we have left."
It's like, who are you looking for? Did you feel sympathy towards Sivana from this opening, Manu?
Oh, I did. I mean, how could you not? Like, he was just this kid trying to play with his toy. And from the very beginning, his dad said, I told you no toys like grandpa. I'm like, okay. Like, this is harsh. And I felt really, really bad for him because it can't be easy growing up in that kind of environment. And we only see a snippet of it. And from the way that he acted when he got to the boardroom, you know that treatment wasn't just that one time. It must have continued on and on throughout his whole life.
The one line in the opening scene that really got to me is, after the car accident and his brother turns to him or his dad, somebody turns to him and is like, this is all your fucking fault, right? Like, you could have killed us and it would have been your fault. You can't ever say that to a kid. I'm getting angry now. just hearing these things. Like, they just picked the worst parent and brother ever just to make sure he was fucked up for life.
And then Shazam told him he's not good enough.
Yeah.
I really can't blame. Like, that's his villain origin story. It's very
Shazam.
It's very
Shazam created 2 villains.
No, it's very effective right from the jump. It's very effective. Gets you right into the thick of it. And when you see the grown up Sivana, you like, yeah, I get it. I understand how he got here.
Kind of reflected a little bit. It was smart of them to do this back to back. Is they then go into Billy Batson committing a crime. Really. So it's like, this guy is not pure of heart either. It is definitely our buddy Jeff Johns' Shazam story straight from the comic books. And this is not classic Billy Batson. This is definitely New 52 Shazam.
I thought that opening scene was so much fun, though, because from the beginning you're like, yeah, Billy, take the cop car.
No, I like when he took the officer's lunch.
Yeah. He was hungry.
He's not pure of heart.
No, so. He's just a kid. He needs help.
I mean, he was doing it for a good cause. He was trying to find his mom, so maybe that balances it out somehow.
His mom's a piece of shit too.
But he didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
He didn't know that at the time.
And unfortunately, that does land him into a bit of trouble and kind of forced into this particular foster home where it sounds like he's been running away from different homes in an attempt to, as Manu said, try to find his mom. And we do get the kind of flashback to when they're at the carnival, and the way they filmed it is they make you believe that he legitimately got lost. And that's one bit where I was a bit confused up until they later reveal what the actual thing is, in which he was holding her hands and I guess he let go and walked back. And it's like, hold on a second. How would any parent would immediately know? Like, hold on. And immediately look back.
I was so uncomfortable watching that scene because the anxiety. I was just like, oh my God, find your kid. Like, what's happening right now?
There's a lot of James Gunn's out there.
But even when he's like, sitting on the cop car with a blanket around him, like as a parent, if you lose your child, you don't stop looking ever. And yes, I had a lot of anxiety. I was very, very angry.
I can tell.
Yeah, sorry. I get passionate about certain parts of this movie.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
The family that he's placed in, though, we're introduced to Victor and Rosa, who are immediately, I think they stole every scene they were in.
I loved them.
They were amazing.
They really were.
I loved their whole background of we were foster kids and now we want to make sure that other because we were terrible foster kids, right? So we want to help as many children as we can. Like their house was a mess all the time and there was, very little structure because they were just doing as much as they could to help all these other kids. And to me, that's one of the best things that you can do is take a child that's not your own and say, I'm going to love you and provide a place.
I did read some structure. Like he yelled at one of the young boys playing, not yelled, but he kind of thought, hey, I thought no games after 8. And then they had dinner together. So there was still, like, even though it was a little bit chaotic and each child kind of did their own thing, they were still working as a family unit.
Right.
The kids, of course, were Mary, Pedro, Eugene, Darla, and Freddie, who, from the bit of, the story itself, all throughout, I felt like some got way more fleshed out than others. And I don't know if that's a case of just runtime or that maybe they said enough of certain kids than they needed to.
I mean, the movie does juggle a lot of things. I think that I definitely think it could have helped if it had another 20 minutes added to it, because I really think that one of the stronger themes of the movie is family and how family can be such a difference to somebody. And you can tell that the doctor did not have a good family, and that we see how that turned out for him. Billy had this chance to be around these amazing people, and you can tell by the end of the movie how being around them has affected him. But I feel like if we had more time spent with the family, with these kids, and we saw more how their effect would have, how the time they spent with him affected him, I think that it would have made some of the emotional beats hit harder for me towards the end of the film. Because I do feel as though, like, him kind of accepting, oh, this is my family, I do feel that it is a little bit rushed within the story. Yeah, but aside from that, I feel that it's the themes are very well handled and done with. I just really needed a little bit more with the whole family aspect of it, because it plays such a big role in Billy's character arc.
Speaking of Billy and his relationships with these characters, he had the strongest connection, of course, with Freddie. And I talked about this with a couple of my coworkers and some of my friends, and we kind of have this divide, and I'm curious to see what you guys think. When he first gets his powers of Shazam, he visits the wizard and he becomes Captain Marvel. When the first thing he does is he goes to Freddy after he had just talked to him for a brief night. He didn't even spend the time there, did he? Or did he have a few days? But even then, he was still pretty shut off from Freddy.
Yeah, he was.
So would it make sense for him to immediately go to Freddy and say, hey, look what happened to me? I feel like being the runaway kid, he would have just left. And I know he says you're the only one that knows the superhero stuff, but does he really know Freddy?
I feel like he would still go back to them because at the end of the day, he's still a kid, right? He's really confused and scared. And as a child, you're going to look for one person who may be able to help you out instead of just running away and trying to figure it out on your own. If he thinks that Freddy can help him figure out what's going on and how to use these powers, yeah, he'd go there.
Well, I actually hadn't thought about that because I think like within the story, it kind of felt just natural that he would go to Freddy. So yeah, I think I agree with Emperor Kelly.
And that's when they immediately jump into like the costume tests and the powers, which I thought was a little jarring as well, where they immediately go into that. As I don't know, it was let's go off and start testing and have fun. And I get that they're kids, but as a story, it felt like, well, we need to get this into the story, so now we're gonna cut to this.
Yeah, honestly, like I really like all that stuff. Is a lot of it is good fun, and it's, you know, like you said, they're kids. I honestly would have liked a little bit less of that and more of the family stuff.
I would agree with that too, but I thought that it was a really interesting concept for them to include in there, that they're becoming YouTube famous. And that's how he gets his notoriety, and that's how he gets the word out there, because a lot of that is very accurate. One thing I even pointed out to Daniel right after the movie is when all the shit's going down, everybody's on their phone recording it, not running. And that's 100% how the world works now. So it was almost like it was just showing people, look how stupid you all are. Because you're idolizing people who get famous off YouTube and stand around and record disasters happening instead of doing something about it.
Well, you got to remember too, this is a post Man of Steel world. Like superheroes are on T-shirts. They know superheroes are a thing, and to them it's to see him walking around. That's why it's not as huge of a deal either. But it's also like they're not treated as gods anymore. It's Shazam, and he has superpowers. He's throwing lightning. So all right, let's film him. We know that these things are around. These people are in this world.
That's a good point. But I did like it when they saw him as gods, though.
Oh, for sure.
Batman still is.
I mean, Batman's Batman. Yeah. He sat in Darkseid's throne, for God's sakes.
Yes. The actual sins that we got, I didn't feel like we needed to get a whole lot of development from them. I thought they did their job, especially being inside Savannah, and he can kind of summon them as needed. They didn't need a lot of depth because they are literally just the embodiment of the 7 deadly sins.
But their designs were awesome. I really liked the way that they were scary. They were intimidating. Like that boardroom scene that I think everybody's been talking about over the weekend. It's so jarring when it happens, but it really took me back to Spider-Man 2 when Dr. Octopus kills everybody in the operating room.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like it really felt like that, especially when they cut back outside to the receptionist, and then you see like all like they just like this blow against the glass windows. I really wish that that the 7 deadly sins, even if they didn't get more development, that they would have played more of a part within the story. I'm not like that maybe that the kids like all embody one form of them in some way, and that's that they would fight them in the end. I felt like that would have been a great way of thematically like bringing all of that stuff full circle.
I won't say that didn't happen though, like in some subconscious way, because didn't Mary fight Lust? Isn't that who she was fighting? The tentacle monster?
No, I think she was fighting.
She fought Gluttony too at one point.
Yeah,
but she was fighting the tentacle monster for most of it, which I'm pretty sure was Lust, if I had to guess.
The interesting thing is like I do think that it's there to some extent. That's why it like popped to my head. Like I do think it's there. Like
they just didn't really highlight it.
Exactly, like Pedro fighting Gluttony because that he wants to become. He says that he wants to become swole at one point. It's like he has his weights on the drawing that Darla made for Shazam. I just wish that they would have maybe highlighted that a little more, like you said.
You're right. That would, I didn't even think about that. Like maybe during the fight, they are trying to put doubt into each of them, and that would have, I think, fleshed out the characters even more. And maybe what we needed to really relate to these kids on a deeper level. That would have been a great change, and not necessarily they didn't have to. You didn't even have to do a whole lot. Like, yeah, you could have had them change and manipulate, but you could have even had them reaching into their mind and reflecting their inner turmoils to each one of them. And that would have worked out because all 7 are fighting, the Marvel family.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly kind of what I had in mind.
I'd have to watch it again and see which ones the kids are fighting, though, because I wouldn't be surprised if they still did something similar. Like, you don't get to see it, right? But
No, I definitely agree with you. I think it is there to some extent, but it would have been a great idea to really highlight that, and and I think it would have
expand on it.
And it would have been a great way of it's not just Billy coming into this family, but also you have the growth of all of the family members together at once.
Savannah, at the end, when he is fighting the rest of the characters, did you feel that, was he just continuing the fight because he felt that those powers should have been his and that should have been his glory, especially after the staff was broken? Or where did you feel he fit at the end?
I think probably some of that, while we didn't see it, was the 7 deadly sins still urging him to fight these characters, because that's kind of what they're going to be imprisoned, right? If he doesn't defeat them, they go back to being imprisoned and they're stuck, and that's not what they want. So you hear several times throughout the movie that they're just using him. His body is just a vessel for them to use. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that was them influencing him, being like, we're going to fight these guys anyway.
I agree with that, but I also want to add that I do think that envy played like a big part of it as well. Yeah, like he did want those powers. Like he felt since sorry, give me 1 second. Oh, hey, sorry about that.
And he hung up.
He took our secrets and ran.
I would never do that.
He uploads this right now.
Yeah, I do think that envy played a big part. He wanted those powers. He thought that they belonged to him. They were denied to him as a child, and I do think that that's why envy is the one that stayed with him until the end. And I also think that maybe I might be adding this to it, but maybe he wanted a family just like Billy did as well.
I would also argue that he could be doing it to prove that he's more worthy of the powers than Billy is.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So by defeating him, like, see, you aren't worthy either. They should have been mine.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Was he essentially trying to be the second Black Adam? Because obviously he would have been corrupt by these powers.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I don't know that he was consciously like, I want to be Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
But that would have been inevitably.
Right, that's what he would have become.
I thought that's what everybody thought. Just walking around like, man, wish I was the Rock.
Wish I had his money for doing very little things.
And he did look really cool with that hood in the history lesson. Like, where's yours, Captain Marvel? What's happening?
He's got this weird little cape.
Overall, the story itself, did you guys feel that it was standard origin superhero fare? Obviously we know that they could have improved on several portions, such as the 7 deadly sins and the family aspect, which was, actually we didn't talk about the heart of the movie that I thought, I think they were trying to make it that it was the Marvel family, but the whole relationship with Billy and his mom, that itself is what I got the most from the movie. That's the part where I was like, can we just get 2 hours of this? Because it
would have been 2 hours of me sobbing.
Yes. What do you think the Joker movie's going to be?
I know. So, so to recap, Billy finally finds his mom with the help of the Marvel family, right? They said, we hacked some CIA service, whatever. Here you go.
Here's a hacker here.
Right. Here's your mom's address, which I felt was a little just kind of thrown in there, but
convenient.
Whatever. So he goes and finds his mom, and she steps out, and we get to see the story of Billy missing from her point of view. And essentially, she was 17 when she had him, so very young, wasn't with got kicked out, was in an abusive relationship or some kind of bad relationship. He got lost, and then she essentially said, well, somebody else could take better care of you, so I just let you go.
The dad had left her, and she was raising him by himself.
Yes. And it's one thing I did really, really like about that scene. So when Billy's recalling it, she's all smiles and happy and very patient with him. And then on the flip side, from her recalling it, you can see how tired she is and how stressed out. And she's kind of snapping at him a little bit and not responding as gently as she could have. So I did like that parallel between the two.
I agree with both of you. That's such a great scene, and it basically anchors the film. because that's the moment that everything shifts.
Mhm.
Billy goes from continuing, as the social worker says at the beginning, he stops looking for somebody that who doesn't want him,
Who
and he
never looks
starts
for
paying
him.
attention to the people who do. And I think that's when he gets the call and jumps off the roof to go save his new families. And that is a great scene. And Asher Angel, who plays Billy Batson, he really delivered in that scene.
My heart broke for that kid.
Yeah, it
My
must have.
like
Yeah,
my
it must have hurt.
my whole thought through that, and again, I'm being a mom, right? Is how can you look your son in the face and break their heart like she just did? And I sobbed in the movie theater. It was horrible.
I mean, she said it's not a good time right now. I mean, like, wow, that's.
Broke his
I,
heart.
I mean,
Ugh. Why'd you make me relive that moment?
blame Dan, not me.
Ugh.
This is the best part of the movie.
It was. I mean, it was, and I wish we could have gotten that much heart throughout the whole film, because you had that moment where, you know, we saw that flashback of him going missing, and then that moment where he meets his mom, and both of those just really sucked you in, and the rest not quite as much.
Manu, you had mentioned Billy Batson really delivering during that. What was his name again? Asher
Angel.
Delivering during that scene, and really the rest of the cast themselves. Let's go into that with Shazam. How did you feel that the dynamic between Zachary Levi and Asher worked out in their different actings? Did you guys feel like they clicked in each time they transformed? Did you believe that they were the same person?
Well, I've read a lot of stuff from a lot of different people that say that they feel like they're two different people. And the first time that I saw the movie, I kind of leaned towards that way, but the second time seeing it, I did see more similarities between the two performances. I think that some scenes you see it more, especially in the quieter scenes for when they're sitting on the steps when it's just Freddy and Shazam and they're just talking. And they're eating all the snacks that they just got from the convenience store. I feel like there is one of the examples of when you get one of those scenes where it feels like it's Asher Angel, and also when he saves Mary. Right before she's about to get hit by the car, and they have that discussion about going to college, I felt it there as well. So I do think that it is that there are sections where it does feel like it's a completely different character, but those moments where he's just talking with these people in his life, I feel like there's a much closer connection in those scenes.
I would want to see it a second time to see if I really picked up more on that. How I felt with my first run is that Zachary was trying really hard, or was, you know, trying to act like a kid, and Asher was trying to act like an adult. And so I think that's where the disconnect was for me, because he was so excited when he was Shazam, and maybe I guess you would be, right? And then he was so not excited about anything when he was just Billy. Except beer, maybe.
Zachary was way more expressive than Asher was when he was a kid. So especially at the beginning, when he's talking, oh, I don't even know how to pee in this thing. It's like I'd never heard that kind of delivery up to that point yet from Asher, so it didn't feel like the
quite
same.
As genuine.
Yeah. That being said, though, I thought Zachary was great throughout the whole thing. Like I
thought it was really good. He was very good. Yeah.
I believe that he wasn't an adult. Like he didn't know what he was really doing.
Right. He was a 15-year-old thrown into an adult's body.
Even if it's not in some scenes the same 15-year-old that we've seen, I'm still like, he nailed the part. They obviously got the guy that knows how to read lines, knows how to do this, has done this before, and is now in a superhero gig. He is Captain Marvel straight from the comic books, and just like you can see him messing around with the Justice League. I don't think it'll happen now in this particular cinematic universe, but you can see him messing around with older superheroes in the future.
I did like the part where he saved the bus and there was a dog in the way and he had to wait for the dog to move.
That's one of my favorite scenes. I liked everything about that scene. I like when he got the mattress and he put it down. It's like, the guys. I really like that. I like that. Even the whole lightning in my hands thing before that. I thought all that was really interesting. As far as acting goes, I honestly don't have any issues with any of the performances by anyone. I thought Zachary Levi and Asher Angel were both good. I thought all of the kids were good in their roles. I thought Mark Strong was very good. I thought
Hmm.
even the older Shazam family, I thought that they were very well cast. I think that I thought really you got to give their casting department and Sandberg a lot of credit because you could really easily imagine that the older actors that played their superhero versions were very much them.
Yeah, you bought it immediately,
Yeah,
especially with
exactly.
like Darla.
Oh
That
man,
was
she was great.
And Freddy, like when Freddy showed up, and it was the guy from the OC. I can't remember his name right now, but I'm like, yeah, like that fits exactly. Like that's exactly who I would have had in mind. Like I just felt like it was perfect, and it was nice to see DJ Controna playing the older Pedro
mhm.
Mhm.
because I think that he was actually cast to play Superman in George Miller's Justice League Mortal.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think that he was the one who was cast for Superman. So
Hmm.
it was kind of cool to see him find his way into the DC universe.
It's always nice when they still can somehow make it later on. And even in this case, as you touched on with Mark Strong, in which he didn't get to reprise his role as a Yellow Lantern Sinestro, we just got a brief look at it, but to do like the Sinestro Corps War on the big screen never happened. And in this case, he got Savannah, and he did great
Amazing.
things with that character, even though there wasn't. It was mainly get the sacred eye, the cursed eye, and go after the
The cosmic eye.
cosmic eye and go after the Marvel family.
Yeah,
Like
and
it was a little bit one tone, but you can tell he was having a great time
Right.
playing that role.
I felt while the acting was good across the board, I felt he was excellent. I believed I'm like, you're not attractive, but you're cool.
no, Mark Strong is always great. Like honestly, he was perfect for this role. He was great. Every line that he delivered was full of menace and
Mhm.
anger, and he was fantastic. I always like seeing him on screen.
Let's talk about Sandberg's work with the directing and also the special effects, which some of it I'm sure is a result of the $98 million budget. I don't know if you guys felt the same, but at the end with the Marvel family, when they were flying around, I was getting the same vibes. Not as bad, but I was getting the same vibes as what you see online with Bruce Banner and the Hulkbuster outfit. Like when they had the bodies up and you see the head kind of floating around a little bit, I'm like, all right, this is
Like
rough.
Wonder Woman's spaghetti noodle lasso.
And Wonder Woman, yeah. Like I felt the special effects were probably the weakest portion of it, at least in that third act.
I completely agree, and not just in that third act. All of the flying scenes I felt were very lackluster, and again that might be because we saw what Zach did with Superman and how amazing that looked. But this time, when you see Shazam moving, I don't know, it just didn't look anywhere close to that.
It was definitely more video gamey than
Wow,
what Zach did.
The whole
Yeah,
time I was just wishing that the 7 deadly sins were actual puppets. Like how cool would that? It would have been so amazing.
So expensive.
Yeah, and that's where all the budget. Where's Guillermo? Get him to direct this. I need the $7 million all for puppets, and it would have been fantastic.
Yeah, he would have brought the heat. He would have, but yeah, I definitely agree. I think that the special effects were a huge letdown. I really wish that WB would have given them more money, but I do understand them wanting to be more fiscally responsible with them, with the character. But if you're gonna do Shazam, might as well do him right. That's kind of my take on it. That, and also I don't know if this fits under special effects, but I'm not crazy about the Shazam costume. I don't think it looks great either. I just found it very I don't know, it just didn't work for me.
There were a couple of things that I probably would have changed on the design standpoint. I would have made the lightning bolt much larger. And I don't know if that's because of the lighting underneath that maybe they couldn't, but I'm used to the comic book one where it is, or at least the New 52 version where it goes all the way almost down to, his belly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It feels kind of bulky, right?
Yeah, and the costume itself, I've seen it kind of described as puffy a lot, where it doesn't feel like, where he's actually jacked.
Zachary Levi cannot get a lot of muscles. Have you seen the man?
Yeah, but there's also ways to do it.
Right,
And I
right.
don't know if that was an intentional look to make them look more kind of fantasy-like or maybe something that a kid would draw. But
yeah.
I can definitely see where the Shazam look could have been improved.
I will say the rest of the Marvel family, though, I loved their costumes.
That's the thing. Like, I think their
They were
costumes
so
look
good.
better.
Yeah.
I think especially Megan Good's costume, I think was great, and Pedro's costume also.
Mhm.
The green one was spectacular,
Mhm.
and also like being shot at night, I think also helps a lot.
That's true.
Because like shooting these suits during the day, it can, with the lighting, it can be like it's harder to hide certain things. But I think that since we only see the Shazam family at night, that highlights those suits so they look a lot better then.
As far as what Sandberg did with the movie, with the directing, there wasn't a whole lot that stuck out to me as like this scene in particular was shot memorably. Like there was nothing in there that I went, okay, he went above and beyond in getting creative with this. It did seem like he played it a little bit safe. And I don't know if this is how, he normally does these things, but there wasn't a lot of creativity in the way that certain things were shot. And I think the one that maybe people might say is the most is that sort of YouTube style, like, okay, let's put up this sheet in front of the camera and we're going to do these different tests. I think that's maybe the most different thing we saw out of this. But even then, it wasn't really doing much with the rest of the film.
I agree.
I will say, and kind of talking about that, and not that this is really a defense, maybe I'm being defensive of it, but something that we've talked about the DC movies throughout is they always make a movie that fits with the character. So I think when you're talking about the character of Shazam, that's not something that that wasn't something that I was going into it looking for. I had no no thought that perhaps we would get something that we really needed to sit and digest and would have these intricately shot scenes, because that's not what the character of Shazam is. It's lighthearted and it's fun and it's going to be very straightforward like a child would be.
That doesn't mean that it can't have that extra bit. Like, for example, Where the Wild Things Are was shot amazing. Winnie the Pooh, even, like, most recently. There's
But neither of those are geared towards children. Neither of those were made with children in mind.
Winnie the Pooh or Where the Wild Things Are?
Yeah, they were
Really?
not made they were made for us who enjoyed them as children who are now adults. They were not made. Does Leo watch Christopher Robin? No. He has zero interest.
I don't think he's watching Shazam either. Those creatures are pretty scary.
Have you put on
And they
Shazam
go to a
for
titty
him?
bar.
Yeah.
And they say
Twice.
shit.
Twice. They go to
We didn't even talk about the titty bar. That was
twice.
great. That was pretty funny.
I think Pedro's it's just not for me was a really nice just a really nice point to throw in there.
Was hilarious. Of all the places he could have thought to go,
Yeah.
boom, titty bar.
I want glitter. Can we get glitter?
The film overall, where it fits in the rest of the DCEU, where it fits in what we've gotten before, this definitely cements further the idea that Warner Brothers is more concerned with establishing its own separate franchises as opposed to going under one vision, which obviously they're not interested in the way that they kind of pushed Zack aside and got rid of him. So now with Aquaman, we're getting, the Trench spin-off film and the inevitable Aquaman 2. It seems like Shazam wasn't too concerned with making sure that this one led into a future crossover with any of the heroes. And I think the biggest mistake in the entire thing was at the very end, where we got that Superman cameo that was, I honestly, I like nothing of that scene. Like, they should have cut that out.
I liked it.
It was embarrassing. Like, if you were to just cut it right before, okay, so if he walks in the cafeteria, I get it. He's bringing him Superman, and there's that payoff, right, from that line earlier. What are you going to have, Superman come in here and deliver us cupcakes? Oh, I see why they set that up. We're going to get something later on. But in this case, if they had just cut to, okay, we see him with the chest carrying, the tray, and then cut there, or cut to a reaction of Freddy going, whoa, but to see him just standing there, like, decapitated, and then him going, whoa, it's like, no, just cut that bit, like, or just frame it off. I don't know. I obviously Kelly liked it.
I'm with Dan. I don't get it. It was completely unnecessary. and it felt cheap, to be honest. I don't understand. The scene worked perfectly fine without him coming there. I honestly would have preferred the scene if it was just Shazam coming to have lunch with his family. I think that would have fit better with what we saw in the whole movie than to just throw this Superman cameo in there for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, but it's almost like an apology for all the shit he put him through all of it. Like, hey, sorry I was a shitty brother. Here's your, like, idol.
I think him showing up was the apology, honestly. I think
no, you gotta go above and beyond.
I'm not sure that was it, though.
I'm excited. That was
decapitated Superman?
Yes, they went below the neck on that
one. I was fine with it. It was Palp approved. Okay. It was Palp accepted.
Palpa, I suppose.
Palpa, I guess.
I mean, I would have preferred to just end it on a high note of the family being together at the cafeteria. I like that all the other kids switched around their lunch breaks so that they could eat with Freddy, because they showed it before that Freddy always ate alone, and he always had fries on his plates that would always like fly off for some reason off of his plate, and like it just felt. When I saw all the family members around the table with him, I just really liked that moment. And then it kind of deflated me a little to see a headless Henry Cavill. Or no, it wasn't even Henry Cavill, it was a stunt double.
Right.
Yeah, so it was disappointing, because I think it would have just been fine with just Shazam walking out and them eating together.
Yeah, and this movie overall, I think, does not... We're not going to see any kind of, Shazam, Captain Marvel in the Justice League team up. We're not going to see any of that. We're just going to keep getting spin-off films. Obviously, we know Black Adam is coming. I'm seeing this a lot on Twitter and on reviewers and with the different bloggers and even with the customers I interact with every day, where they're going, this is the direction. They're finally going in the right direction. Whereas I'm like, this is... Justice League is my least favorite in the DCEU. And then right above that, and just to be clear, I thought this was all right, but it's that and Aquaman are like my next ones on this list, and then everything else. So to me as a film viewer, I'm like, no, we're not going in the right direction. Like this is not what we were getting before. And it seems like they're kind of settling for something a little bit safer.
Yeah, it's interesting that, no, I don't mean to rag on these films, but like the lower quality they are, the better they're accepted. I feel like that definitely has a lot to say about kind of the climate around these films now. That people want less and less from them and just want to be entertained for a couple of hours. Which there's nothing wrong with that. But I'll take Shazam for example. If Shazam wasn't so interested in making you laugh and making you comfortable, I think that the story would have been far more powerful. I think that if you had really gone into this life that these kids live, into the sadness of being without parents, of trying to build a home from nothing, of trying to recreate something that you never even knew that you were missing. I think that if they had gone more into those themes, that seeing the Shazam family together at the end, working together, fighting together, would have been so much more worthwhile than it was. Not that it wasn't good in the movie, but I think that if you allow yourself to go into those dark places, when you finally get to like the light, it just feels much better.
Absolutely, 100%. But of course, they have to make things. People don't like to feel those things.
That's a crowd pleaser.
That's right. That's what it is.
I totally understand that.
Overall, I do feel that there probably were too many jokes. Like you said, they tried to fit. Were some of them funny? Yes, I did enjoy some of them. Whereas on the Marvel side, I typically don't enjoy any. But when I talk to people about this movie, after we saw it, I go back to work. And they said, how was your weekend? Oh, good, we saw Shazam. Oh, was it good? And I said, do you like the Marvel movies? Then you'll probably like Shazam.
Well, then you might like it. Because here's the thing. It's like, the one thing that I had someone ask me, how would you think? Then they know that I'm the big, DC beluga. And I'm like, yeah, it was all right. It was okay. Really, I'm shocked with all the jokes. And I'm like, well, no, this didn't have a joke every, 60
5
seconds.
Yeah.
And the jokes weren't nipple jokes. They were... there's a difference. Or turd jokes. This was different. It was more spaced out. And this doesn't mean that there doesn't have to be comedy. There's great comedies out there. American Psycho is an amazing comedy. And that doesn't mean that we should not have any jokes in superhero films. But I do think, as you said, Manu, that if they just toned down some of them and fleshed out the story a bit more, it would have benefited as a longer standing film, something that you would want to see years down the line. Like, do you think that in 10 years, people are going to remember Shazam as, that's the one, that one was great. And that wasn't just a good superhero movie. That was a good movie as compared to something like Man of Steel or BVS.
That only continue to get better the more you watch it.
Right.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I like Shazam it's fine. It's fine. It's not, I don't think it's a bad movie at all. I really don't. But it would have been, like you said, there's enough here. Like the skeleton is there. Actually more than just the skeleton, but there's enough there for there to be more. I don't know if I'm putting that.
They could have fleshed it out more.
Like they had all of the pieces necessary to make this something that could like live on, but they chose the safer route. And in this climate, I mean, it sucks, but I always say I understand why they're doing it. I do understand it, but it sucks.
Yeah, and I think to kind of round my bit of it is, there was like that heart of the film with Freddie with Billy and his mom, and there was definitely way more there than you do get in your standard superhero fare, at least these days. So that to me made it like, I'm glad I saw it. I would not, if I were to go back, I would go, no, I'll skip it. No, I'm glad I did see it, and I'll probably give it another go at some point. I'm not going to rush out to purchase it. What about your thoughts overall, Kelly?
Overall, I thought it was an entertaining movie, definitely lighter. As I said earlier, I felt that it very much fit the character of Shazam. I thought that the kids were well represented, and it got me, of course, excited for the Black Adam movie. It wasn't as evenly, I'm trying to think of the right word. So, yes, there were a lot of heart with the scenes with Billy and his mom, and if they could have kept that same focus that I had in those moments throughout the movie, it definitely would have been stronger for me, because there were some moments. One that you bring up is when he's fighting at the end, right? And they're having that scene where the wind's blowing and they're talking back and forth, and he's like, I can't hear you.
That was a Marvel joke.
I know. Those points, they dragged out a little too much, right? Where they could have been just tightened up a little bit. But it did have a lot of good bones, and of course, felt very much like Shazam.
I remember that scene looking over at you like, what the fuck, man? Is this going to go on forever?
Like, the first time I was like, that's funny. And then it just kept going.
I can't hear you. Are you giving us a villain monologue right now?
And I would have also liked to see a moment where they all sit in the chairs, right? Because they had all those chairs in their lair.
That's true.
And then one's empty. Because I counted all those damn kids, and I counted all those damn chairs. And then it's Black Adam, of course, is the last one.
Is it for sure? Like, would it
would have to be, because there were 7 chairs, right?
I have to. Manu, you saw it twice. Were there 7? Because I thought there were only 6.
Yeah, there were 7 chairs.
Yeah, and then there's only 6 kids. So, Black Adam.
Fucking Black Adam.
And they could have all sat down, and then you could have ended the movie with, who's that one for? Boom!
But then, what would you have done with the Superman cameo? Where would you have put that?
I'm switching it out. I've Palpa decided that we can switch out the Superman cameo.
You are mad with power.
Better yet, that could have been the second post-credit scene instead of like what seemed to be a deleted scene where they talked about Aquaman. I'm like, did they just delete this and decide to let's just throw that at the very end?
Let's just put it in. Make it. It's relevant now.
I missed it the first time around, but I stayed around for the second time. I was like, I'm mad at myself.
I'm mad that I did this.
Yeah, I'm mad. I should have just left.
Yeah, that would have been a great last scene.
I agree. It would have been.
I don't know if you guys... Yeah, go ahead, Manu.
So I actually had a question, because, Dan, you're the comic book guy. There's this scene where when they're running away from Sylvana, and there's all of these doors, and they open these doors, and they end up in, it's these different dimensions, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of them he opens in, it's like a swamp. Is that like a reference to Swamp Thing, or am I reaching?
Is that the one where the tentacle kind of comes out? I know that's definitely one of the worlds, but the one that I definitely recognize, because it looks like they changed up the monster at least a little bit to fit this sort of live action. But the Wildlands are the ones that with the crocodile people sitting down and talking about, that's the Wildlands. But it wasn't obvious enough to like the comic reader. Whereas the Wildlands, it's literally like Zootopia, where every monster or every person is like a different animal. And in this one, it was like a couple of crocodiles and they're all like, they rush at them. And I get that was the Wildlands, but it wasn't, I think, obvious enough to a lot of,
Right. I do wish that they had made that more obvious that these were the different realms, because you do get that scene at the end where the Caterpillar Man's like, we're going to take over the 7 realms. Blah, blah, blah. And then you would have been like, oh my God, they already saw those. That's what it is.
So yeah, in the first post-credit scene, we see Silvano with in the prison cell. So who speaks to him?
Mr. Mind.
Mr. Mind, is that that's not the one that's like obsessed with Superman and you have to say his name backwards or whatever?
No. That's Mixospitalik.
Yeah, that's actually who I thought it was at first.
So it's the little caterpillar guy, but you actually see him earlier in the movie in a glass thing in the lair, and then after the 7 sins break out, then you see the glass broken.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah. Okay, so what's Mr. Mind?
So he's actually one of the older Captain Marvel villains. He's got telepathy, he's got projection, advanced mind control, and he kind of sets up basically the Monster Society to go after Captain Marvel. And they were I guess they were smarter as far as to kind of please the older fan base, or at least the readers, to go with Mastermind. I know I had read that they were initially going to, according to Dwayne Johnson, I don't know if this is true or not, because he also said, I had the choice of playing Captain Marvel or Black Adam, and I chose Black Adam.
Yeah, I remember that. That was like 6 years ago.
Yeah. So, the Mr. Mind is probably the like deeper reach to the villains, but I know a lot of people were saying that they wish that they had instead referenced Black Adam, because he is more accessible to a lot more readers. Even today, you still haven't even seen Mr. Mind in the current comic books, at least that I've seen. Even in the New 52, I don't remember seeing Mr. Mind. And I know Jeff Johns is working him in, but right now we're kind of stuck in what was it, Toyland, I believe?
I don't even remember.
Where there's no adults and they're making the adults.
Yeah, that's where they were.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Dan, because I was confused.
Yeah, it's not. It's going to be
comic history.
It's going to be more of a Lex Luthor if they end up using him in Shazam 2, which it sounds like they are. It's going to be a more Lex Luthor-ish villain rather than someone who's going to throw down with with Captain Marvel. And we'll probably get the Monster Society, and that's where they will fight the different the Marvel family. But honestly, you have no idea. I think even Sandberg said that they just kind of threw him in as like, oh, they'll like this, and it doesn't sound like they really had a definitive script to
or an
Shazam
understanding
2.
of who the character is.
Okay. Well, you mean Mr. Mind was just throwing it at the last minute?
According to Sandberg, they were just like, oh, this is kind of a cool thing to throw in. Like, I have the quote here. Let me... actually, I had it as a tweet.
Just summarize it.
Yeah, that was essentially the summary, where he was saying that this is for fans of the, in the theaters, a lot of people are going to go, huh, who's that? And the comic people are going to go, oh, it's Mr. Mind. And he's like, I like to throw stuff like that in there. As opposed to saying, oh, you might see this in a future movie. And I know that's probably the plan, but I don't think they even knew if Shazam 2 was going to happen at this point, especially after, what happened with Justice League. Although I'm sure Aquaman gave them the confidence to like, we'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
All right, so since we do like to end the reviews on an out of 5, and we said 5 titty bars, let's go ahead and give our rating out of 5. And I want to be clear, I don't know how, you'll have to tell me, Manu, how you're going to rate this, but the way, Papa Kelly, if you want to tell them how you rate the movies out of 5 when you talk about a rating.
So I rated my overall enjoyment of the movie personally, and by how... man, I can't have words today. I need stronger coffee. But kind of did the movie do what it was supposed to do, right? So they were supposed to make a Shazam movie. Did it do its job?
I rated as 5 being my favorite movie of all time, which is The Fountain and City Lights, and then 1 being, The Avengers and Justice League. So that's kind of where I go. So sometimes
those are your Justice League is worse than any other movie that you could put up there?
It's pretty terrible. Like that and Avengers, I can't like if you were to say you got to watch one of these, I'm like I don't fucking know which one. I'm deadlocked.
What about Guardians 2 though?
Guardians 2's pretty bad, but I'll still put that above Avengers and Justice League. Even Ragnarok's pretty fucking awful, actually.
I'm gonna find a movie. What about Doctor Strange? That was also a terrible movie.
Yeah, it was just boring.
It was so boring.
It was still bad.
I'm bored just thinking about it.
Like I do think Doctor Strange is like probably the best shot Marvel movie though. It's not great, but it's.
I was too bored to care how they shot it.
That's fair.
You put Leo to sleep with that shit.
Well, there you go. This is good for something.
Nap time every day.
What about you, Manu? I don't think I've heard you guys actually give like a straight up rating at least every single time you guys talk about movies. But do you like giving ratings at all, or do you like kind of just giving a summary?
We usually just give summaries. We worry that if you give something a rating, people will just focus on the rating and just forget everything else that you said through the course of your review. I mean, we see it all the time with Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. Or they'll remember like, hey, but you gave this a 2.
Exactly. Or you give this a long review and then, how did this only get a B or a 3 or so on and so forth. But yeah, so usually we don't give ratings, but since I'm a guest here, I'll figure something out real quick.
Do you have your titty bar rating, Papa Kelly?
I do. I do like 3 and 3.25 titty bars.
That's like your lowest rating I've seen.
No, it's not. I've given something a 2.
And this is why ratings don't work, right, Manu?
This is why, because it's not quite a 3.5, but it's not quite a 3. So it's kind of 3.5 half.
See, we don't have that problem.
Because anyway, 3.5 half, because as I've said throughout, there still could have been heart. It did feel like a Shazam movie, but we've read some comics, Jeff Johns' run that had a lot more heart, and felt if they had just followed that exactly, we would have gotten a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and actually go really close with yours and do 3 titty bars out of 5. And it was pretty standard fare, middle of the road. I didn't dislike it. I didn't love it. I won't see it more than 2 times for sure. I think the second time, if I do, it'll just be to kind of cement my thoughts with myself, because we're not going to review this again.
You say that, but I remember the first time you saw Man of Steel and you were like, that was a terrible movie.
I didn't say it was terrible.
You said
I did not say it was terrible, but
really
I did call him the Man of Slouch, and I still stand by that. The guy slouches in that compared to BVS.
I remember you saying that you just didn't like the movie.
The trailer sold us a different movie. but now that I've let that go, I understand what Zach was doing.
All right.
I mean, Zach's movies need more than one watch.
Yeah, it's Man of Steel is definitely a movie that over time you watch more and more and you're like, holy shit, like there's a lot here. Especially now that you're seeing these parallels of Zod and Doomsday.
Yes.
It's insane.
It's ridiculous. It's I don't want to start this whole Zach praising thing, because when that gets started, who knows when it'll stop. But that
you guys
man
will be here all night.
He is just on a whole other level. There's this scene where Doomsday is looking at his statue, and you could just feel the hatred come off of him, and you're like, that's Zod still needs to be in there to some extent.
Yes.
He has to still be in there, because the way that he just hated on that statue being there and then proceeded to destroy it by throwing Cal through it, that's symbolic.
Yeah, and I think that's the most obvious one that even it's holy shit, we people are still discovering things about these 2 movies, and that's the one of him murdering his dad with the same type of a big weapon, a stabbing weapon, and then he does the same with Clark later on. Yep. Shot very similarly. Like
I said, Zach is crazy.
He doesn't forget anything. He remembers all.
Zach he's on a level, and there's this great video. I'll try to find it and send it to you afterwards, where they talk about Superman killing Zod, right? In Man of Steel, and how that scene plays almost beat for beat with Cal's birth. The way that it ramps up and then it ends in a gigantic scream. I have to send you the video. It's really incredible.
Yeah, I'll definitely need to. That's one I did not see. I saw some people tweeting about it, but I didn't see the video.
You have goosebumps. He's talking about it.
No, it's great. Like Zach, he's just so ahead of the curve on everything that he's done, and it's such a shame that he had this universe taken from him because there's so many threads and so many things that will never fully get paid off on. You know, all the stuff with the codex. You know, the nightmare sequence that, you know, we're going to keep guessing about what the hell really went down, or what, like, you know, we'll just get bits of information for the rest of our lives, it feels like, until they fucking release the Snyder cut. But he's really on another level.
Yeah, while it is terrible, the thing that happened to him, I do think he's also gained a very, very strong and passionate fan base that now won't just go, oh, well, he's no longer doing superheroes. That's it. No, we will now follow him till the end of time.
Army of the Dead were there day one.
Yes, 100%.
Day one. I'll just leave it on Netflix and just let it play over and over and over again, even if I'm not watching it.
I'll play it at the store. We're not allowed to play R-rated things, and I'll still be like, no, we're just gonna play this.
I'll just skip the bad parts.
Manu, do you want to give a rating to Shazam, or if you don't, just your overall summarizing thoughts?
I'll give it a rating.
Titty bar.
I'll give it 2.5 titty bars.
There you go.
I'll give it 2.5 titty bars. I did enjoy the movie. I liked it I liked it more than I thought I would, because I did not like the trailers at all. Especially the first trailer that came out, I was not interested at all. But I did enjoy it more than I thought I would. I think that there is a lot of good in this movie, and I would have liked to see more of that than of some of the stuff that we got. But I really do like Sandberg as a director. I think that this is a well casted film. Honestly, I don't have much bad to say about it. I think the performances are really good. I think that the themes are strong. They could have been handled better. There's a lot of good things in this movie. I really wish that they would have focused more on those things than on the things that they chose to prioritize.
Well, that's perfect. That's a great summary, I think, that we can all agree on. And the Brocat Core, of course, if you want to chime in with your thoughts, as always, you know where to find us at Reasons I'm Broke on Twitter. But Manu, huge on Twitter, huge part of this Exiles Network. You can find them at the Film Exiles, but where else can they find you, Manu?
Well, they can find me on Twitter. My personal account is at ManUnited0710. You can follow the Exiles Network at the Exiles Net. That's the main hub, because we have a few pods under it. We have the Film Exiles, and we have the Ronin Council, which just released its 3rd episode. I think today. The Ronin Council, that's all Millennial Mike. He's been working on it. This is his baby. It's all anime. It's all anime related. They've been doing a great job. It's actually been getting a great response so far, and it's really been great. And they're just been chugging at it so hard. We have Only Gray, who's sometimes has these great bits that he does for us. He also has his own site, Not the Popular Opinion. So yeah, we're doing a lot. We also have a classics that's going to come out soon, starring James at Mass Critical, and DC Down Under, where we're going to be focusing on movies from I think the late 70s to mid 2000s. So if you guys want to come on and be a guest for any of those, you guys are more than welcome to.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Yeah, we will probably take you up on that. And something I want to make clear, too, with listeners is when you search the Film Exiles on your favorite podcatcher, the different programs, the different podcasts that Manu was highlighting, you get all of that in that RSS feed. Yes. So you will get all of these programs in one feed, which is really nice because it all gets downloaded straight to your smartphone or your device, wherever it is that you consume podcasts, and you don't have to worry about seeking out, where's the Ronin, where's this, where's that. It's all in one, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's good. We just try to make it easier for everybody because, it's, life is hard enough.
And if Brocats want to see the exclusive scoop, the breaking news about Darkseid, where can they read the full article about the casting?
Well, they can get it at our WordPress. It's WordPress Hold on, let me get it real quick. Thank you for reminding me. Actually, Mike would never forgive me. You can find us at WordPress, the Exiles Network.wordpress.com.
And that's where you will find, if you have not already seen it on Twitter, retweeted, and you will find it right there. There will be links in today's show notes on all of this as well, in case you're driving and you can access it later. Just swipe on over to the show notes and you will find everything on there. So Manu, I do want to thank you so much again for representing the film Exiles and the Exiles Network, and also for helping Palpa, Kelli, and I with this Shazam review today.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being on. Sorry. So, Brokeheads, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Anybody who came over because you listened to the film Exiles, thank you for showing up as well. I am Emperor Papa Kelli.
I am Darth Vader Daniel.
I'm Manu.
And Brokehead Core.
All will be well.